Mario's many professions, his most popular, perhaps even more so than his mainline games, is his kart racing spin-off Mario Kart. Widely considered the best in the franchise, Mario Kart 64 would drop on the Nintendo 64 and resurface on the Wii and Wii U's virtual consoles, as well as the iQue in China. While containing elements of traditional racers, Mario Kart 64 mixes in crazy multiplayer party game elements like items to harm opponents and generally hazardous and zany tracks. The real question is, does Mario Kart 64 actually get the gold, or has it trailed behind? Mario Kart 64's basic layout is about what one would expect. Racers go around a race course 3 times trying to outdo each other to get ahead. Mechanically, the game is a bit odd though. Compared to its successors, Mario Kart 64 is much slipperier. Perhaps it's just my experience with the later titles more than this, but I felt a constant fight against the controls, almost a constant need to correct myself after turning. I think this is mostly because despite its 3D environment, 64 is effectively a 2D game. Characters are sprites and rotate in place to turn, which throws me off quite a bit. It's something I grew into, and hell, the slipperiness adds a chaotic feel that's kind of endearing in a way. Drifting is also very strange. It isn't like Mario Kart 8's fast and tight drifting. Drifting is wide and loose, and to get a boost out of it, the player needs to do a strange stick shimmy. The strangest part of drifting is that it doesn't really feel like the game thinks you'll use it. Stages tend to be really tight and narrow, which makes drifting pretty situational for the average guy like me. There's also a punishment for turning too much in the form of a spin out, which is a little harsh I think. Even harsher is the 5 to 10 second punishment of falling off a track. Falling off even once is going to put the player down to 8th. It's incredibly slow, and there's an extra punishment for holding the gas and getting put back on the track in the form of another spin out, insult to injury. The game has 4 speeds, 50cc, 100cc, and 150cc, plus extra which is 150cc with mirrored stages. 50cc is far too slow for me, 150cc intensifies the slipperiness a little too much for my liking, so I'd say 100cc is the best in this game, at least for me. Unlike later games, speed is also tied to difficulty, and by that I mean on 150cc, AI will blatantly cheat and relentlessly bury the player. Getting golds legitimately is pretty tough because the AI gets stupid high rubber banding to catch up, but don't really slow back down after, but it's easy enough to tank a race to get a free retry at no real cost. As a quick aside here, I didn't realize until after I'd beaten the game and was recording footage for mirror mode that the heavy characters are actually easy mode basically. They kind of just completely stomp in the normal mode because they don't lose speed on turns, and with rubber banding they kind of just become better than lightweight characters unless you're really good at drifting, so yeah. The only effective counter to the AI is items, and by that I mean getting in front and using defensive items to stay in front. The AI has a lot of trouble with some of them. Prefacing the items, the item a player gets is somewhat dependent on placement, but restrictions are much less tight than the games that follow this one. First place only tends to get mushrooms, which are a boost, bananas which slip enemies, green shells and triple green shells, projectiles that bounce off walls, although they have a tendency to launch at weird angles for some reason, even without input, and they're red cousins, which home in on opponents. Given, in this game the pathfinding is pretty bad and they tend to just smash into walls on anything but straightaways. Everything else seems to show up for everyone, save the final item, which seems to only appear for 8th, maybe 7th, which makes 2nd place the place to be. Triple mushrooms are 3 boosts, golden mushrooms are unlimited boosts for a short amount of time, and as a short aside on that, mushrooms aren't that great due to the intense rubber banding in this game. Fake items look a lot like item box, making them slightly more dangerous bananas in practice. Banana bunches are 5 bananas. The superstar gives invincibility and the ability to damage enemies on touch. Boo gives invincibility and steals an item from a random opponent. Thunderbolt shrinks every other player, which slows them down and causes them to squish when they're hit and lose even more speed. And the infamous spiny shell, more commonly known as the blue shell, which flies towards first place and explodes on them, mowing everyone in front on the way there. It still has the same pathfinding issues as the red shell does though, and tends to bonk into walls uselessly. Pretty much the only counter to the AI is getting a banana bunch or triple green shells and just praying that the AI bumps into them when they're trying to pass. There are 8 playable characters in the game that can be roughly put into 3.5 camps. Lightweights, Toad, Peach, and Yoshi in that order. They accelerate quickly and have high top speeds plus huge boosts from drifts, but have terrible handling and lose tons of speed when off-road. Middleweights, Mario and Luigi pretty much suck. Their top speed matches the heavyweights, but they have the lowest acceleration. They have good handling, but don't have much else going on for them. And the heavyweights, Wario, Donkey Kong, and Bowser, who can smack other drivers around and accelerate well, and lose almost no speed on corners if they're not drifting, but don't have amazing top speeds. Bowser is the heaviest, a super heavyweight as it were, which gives him a weird acceleration thing too that makes him a little better than the other heavyweights. Good players benefit a lot from lightweights, bad players might as well go heavy because there's no real benefit to the middleweights. There's also 16 tracks, but we'll put those on hold for a second to talk about aesthetics. The game looks fine. There's a charm to the way the game mixes sprites for characters and items with the models of the tracks, and while the models and textures are a bit iffy, the variety in maps really carries it. There's a ton of unique and distinct themes that make each track stand out and become really memorable, from desert railroads to jungle cruises. There's an impressive mixture of locales that keep the game fresh. The music is fine. It's really fun that each song has a fast version that plays on the final lap, but the music really isn't that memorable. Very few stages have unique themes either. Most music is shared on a few stages, presumably due to the N64 cartridge's relatively low amount of storage space. Some songs do stick out, the title theme, Rainbow Road, Bowser's Castle, but there's a surprising lack of energy in all the music. Mario Kart 64 has 16 courses divided into 4 cups of 4 tracks, although the cups don't really have a theme to them outside of a slight increase in difficulty from cup to cup. The course list is relatively low, at least compared to the last couple games in the series, but that's primarily because, being the second game, it couldn't rely on remaking old tracks to help fill the roster. If anything speaks to how beloved the tracks are, all but one have returned for later games as retro tracks. Starting with the Mushroom Cup, which features relatively simple courses, the first track is Luigi Raceway. Perhaps the game's most standard track, it has a simple P-shaped layout, few hazards, and no shortcuts, and a simple theme of race course with some Luigi images thrown about. Its only odd mechanic is a hot air balloon near the start that raises and lowers, hanging an item box that always has a spiny shell that can be jumped into when it's low to the ground. Because it's so simple, it turns into a very high skill and simple course, and one that I like a lot. Moo Moo Farms is themed around a farm, with a surprising lack of cows given its name. They don't appear on the track, they appear in the backgrounds. Instead, it focuses on Monimoles, who jump out of holes that are littered around the inside of the track. Staying inside is riskier, but shaves some time off the race. It's a pretty middle-tier course, I don't see why everyone loves this one so much. Koopa Troopa Beach has the Mushroom Cup's most unique gimmick. The tide will slowly rise in and out, widening and shrinking the course during play. While areas covered in water are still fair game, they'll be much slower, making it a course that's fresh every single lap. There's also some alternate routes, including a shortcut exclusive to low tide and a cave that cuts through the middle from jumping off a ramp. It's a really fun course, probably the best of Mushroom Cup's offerings. Lastly for the cup is Calamari Desert. While the theme of the desert is a little fittingly barren and plain, it's broken up by a train track that intersects the course in a few spots. The train and its cars may block the track completely for a few seconds, making a really fun decision-making moment between slowing to wait or trying to rush it and risk losing a bunch of time if run over. It's again a really solid course, up there with Koopa Troopa Beach. If the Mushroom Cup was the relatively straightforward tracks, the Flower Cup is perhaps the most chaotic set. Toad's Turnpike is a simple figure-8 shaped track, but features traffic that moves in the direction of the racers to spice it up. Large semi-trucks and cars move at varying speeds, sometimes far apart, sometimes requiring some very tight squeezes. Item boxes only appear on the outside of the tracks in little pit stops, forcing racers to swerve in and out to get items. It's a very claustrophobic track, not to mention very nice looking due to its moderate sunset and nighttime feel. Uniquely, in mirror mode, traffic moves towards the player instead of with them, increasing the chaos. It's an incredibly fun and hectic stage, but perhaps a bit too hectic when the amount of lanes shrinks and vehicles line up badly. Frappe Snowland has a chill atmosphere and music to match, but an evil layout. Spread throughout the course are snowmen that toss racers in the air on contact. While they tend towards the edges of the track, making them very avoidable for the most part, the open area forces the choice of a snowman minefield or the long way around. The final area takes place in a giant snow canyon, a fun place to bounce off enemies and cause some green shell chaos. It's another fantastic course, probably the best of the Flower Cup. Want to hear a weird theme idea? Choco Mountain. It's made of chocolate apparently, complete with chocolate boulders. The stage is also shrouded in fog. Gonna guess it was a little too big and too tightly packed for the N64 to deal with. This course can be pretty mean. Falling off the higher portion near the end sends a racer almost back to the start. Messing up there is almost an instant loss, it's pretty much unrecoverable at that point. The stage is also super bumpy, which brings up an interesting quirk of Mario Kart 64. There's absolutely no air correction, which coupled with veering sharply if turning on a jump makes bumps risky business if not prepared. Jumping into a wall on accident can slow a racer down for like 3 to 4 seconds. It's a course with a lot of verticality, which is unique, but I'd consider it fairly low tier. Mario Raceway completely abandons the chaos of the prior Flower Cup tracks. It's themed much like Luigi Raceway, but with a Mario bent, and is for the most part very standard, albeit much curvier and with sharper turns than the very smooth Luigi Raceway. Not bad, a little ill-fitting of its cup, but it's a pretty comfy stage, I like this one. If I had to give a theme to Star Cup, I'd say skill. A lot of the tracks are pretty skill heavy and don't go too wild until the very end. Wario Stadium is long, bumpy, and full of turns and curves wide enough for drifting. There aren't really hazards, just a lot of space and skill. The stadium theming is very strong, especially the huge display monitors that follow the player and show small screen caps of the action. Strong theme, okay track, only lacking a bit in the chaos department. Sherbet Land is a glacier covered in penguins. The entire inside of the course is dangerous water, and penguins serve as constant hazards. In outdoor areas, they slide back and forth, and in the caves, they circle pillars. The asshole penguins have a tendency to ruin everything, but they move in very predictable patterns, and because the course is so wide, drifting works pretty well here, but at a high risk of ending up in the water. Mid-tier course. Royal Raceway returns to a more standard course theme. There's a huge jump in the middle of the course, and it tends to be very curvy, usually sloped around some very steep death pits that take a long time to fall into. I know I've mentioned it already in the video, but the recovery time in this game can be harsh. In Mario Kart 8, it's like 2 seconds and you're back at it. In this one, some of these pits, especially the pits in this level, there's just like this huge roll down to the bottom, which takes like 4 seconds and then 5 seconds to get back on the track. It's horrific. After the big jump, for no reason, racers can turn off course and drive around Peach's castle, which is ported directly from Super Mario 64. It's kind of interesting that it even allows this, because there's no function to it, there's no like shortcut or anything, it's just kind of a thing that's there. It's kind of neat to look at. The ending ceremony for every cup also takes place at the castle, which is a neat little fact, I guess. Staying on track on a course so curvy is very tough, and it makes the course really intense and competitive. This one is probably the best of Star Cup. Bowser's Castle is hell. Narrow bridges over lava, thwomps that chase the player down and ignore AI racers to smash and fuck them, and more thwomps at every speed increase. Holy fuck, this course is mean. Turns are almost all 90 degrees, so there's some solid drifting opportunity, but small mistakes make such big issues in this track. There's also the infamous green thwomp in a cage. Nobody knows why he's there. I think the reason he's green is because they were trying to make some intense lighting and it just kind of turned out fucky. The course is definitely fun, but it's a little too cruel for my tastes. It can be really harsh. This one took me forever to beat. The Special Cups theme, so to speak, is going completely wild with the dumbest and wackiest ideas, with a fair mixture of Link thrown in. DK's Jungle Parkway loops and curves a lot and has another large jump not dissimilar to Royal Raceway, but in a fun jungle theme with a weird gimmick that touching the grass causes rocks to be flung at the racer, pushing them back on course, which somewhat prevents boosting over the slow grass sections. There's also a paddle boat that goes across the river over the jump, and apparently it's possible to bump into it, but most of the time you kind of just clip through it. Cool theme, fun speed and layout, pretty great course. Yoshi Valley is nuts. The middle section is a huge maze of paths of varying lengths and safeties. The shorter the path, the more dangerous it usually is. The track is so complex that the game just gives up on figuring out placements until the end. For the rest of the race, it's just question marks on the sides. After the chaos of the paths is a gigantic, hilarious Yoshi egg that rolls in circles and flattens anything it touches for almost 10 seconds. It's the ultimate chaos course. It's impossible to tell the placements. The items stop working, red shells don't do anything. Blue shells will just fly right off the stage. It's the peak chaos course. It's really fun. It's stupid fun. The worst course in the game is Banshee Boardwalk. The stage is Doom 3 tier dark. There's few guardrails and the darkness makes it extremely easy to unknowingly take a plunge into the water, which is an easy way to fall behind to 8th place. If the boardwalk was a little more pronounced, it probably wouldn't be as much of an issue, but the boardwalk is like a dark gray and the water is just pitch black. The darkness isn't helped by the shitty semi-transparent boo JPEGs that clutter up the screen at certain points. The turns in the stage are so sharp in general that lightweights are gonna spin out a lot, if not just fly off the stage outright. I normally love the haunted ships and ghost themes, but holy hell, this one is just so dark. I had to turn my TV to max contrast and brightness and it still looked like just fucking terrible. 64's most famous and final track is Rainbow Road. The stage is absurdly long at about 2 minutes a lap. The only hazard are roaming chain chomps that zigzag along the track towards the player, while the rest is a pure endurance track to some nice visuals. Rainbow track and a large constellation for each playable character. The course is actually very easy, maybe one of the easiest in the game. Every section is covered in guardrails and unless intending to, falling off is near impossible. The shortcut of jumping from the starting line to the middle is super easy and saves tons of time too, like literally cuts the course length in half. It's a very solid course, it's definitely deserving of the praise. It might be a touch too long, but also fun fact, this course was ported to F-Zero X, which is a fantastic game. On top of the Grand Prix mode, Mario Kart 64 has a few additional modes. Time trials track lap and total race time and don't feature opponents or items, save for 3 starting mushrooms. Those familiar with Mario Kart 64 speedrun have probably seen a lot of time trial. There's also the multiplayer-only battle mode. Presumably because of some issue making the battle mode AI, this section of the game is human-only. 2-player battle mode isn't that great without the chaos of more players. Granted, it's still fun, but probably exponentially so in 4-player mode. There are 4 fairly simple battle courses. Big Donut is a huge ring that slopes towards a pit in the center with large walls for cover on every 4th, which is definitely too spacious for 2 players. Block Fort has 4 pyramids in each corner with ramps that lead up and bridges connecting them. The top is good for camping, but the boxes tend towards the bottom, and the pyramids provide tons of cover. It's a very solid map, I'm sure, in 4-player. Again, it's a little too large and spacious for 2-player. Double Deck is the best battle map. There are 2 floors connected by ramps, with the top floor having a big gap in the middle that leads back to the bottom. It's pretty much exactly like the ice one from Diddy Kong Racing, but Diddy Kong Racing has AI. Very fun setup for big chases and cat and mouse games. Unfortunately, Double Deck is the only battle course that's stuck solely in Mario Kart 64, while every other one has reappeared in a later game. Finally is Skyscraper, perhaps the only battle mode stage sized well for 2 players. Skyscraper is formed of 2 rings that are connected by narrow paths, but separated by gaps small enough to potentially jump, allowing for risky escapes. Battle mode is super solid, but you'll probably need to get 4 together to get everything out of it. Such a shame that it doesn't have AI to fill the gaps. That's really a majority of it. It's a simple party racing game. Getting a gold cup in the 150cc special cup by getting first place overall unlocks mirror mode, and getting all the gold cups on all speeds except mirror mode unlocks a new title screen. The amount of content is fairly slim, but it's mostly good content, and it's content that goes on and on because of time trials and playing with friends and all that. I'd be remiss not to go on my classic adaptation tangent while I'm here too. Volumes 15 to 18 of the Super Mario Kart manga adapt Mario Kart 64 apparently. As always, good luck reading that if you aren't Japanese. For Coma Manga Kingdom and For Coma Gag Battle joke mangas also apparently had Mario Kart 64 skits. Same issues with Super Mario Kart, not really available to the West. For such a simple game, Mario Kart 64 has had a hell of an impact on the rest of the series. Super Mario Kart was popular, but 64 turned it into a franchise rivaling Mario's mainline offerings. As previously mentioned, all but 1 track and 1 battle course have returned in the games following this one. Moo Moo Farm, Frappe Snowland, Choco Mountain, Banshee Boardwalk, and Block Fort all appear in Mario Kart DS. Mario Raceway, Sherbetland, Bowser's Castle, DK's Jungle Parkway, and Skyscraper all appear in Mario Kart Wii. Luigi Raceway, Koopa Troopa Beach, Calamari Desert, and Big Donut appear in Mario Kart 7, and Toad's Turnpike, Royal Raceway, Yoshi Valley, and Rainbow Road appear in Mario Kart 8 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Even Wario Stadium, the only track that hasn't been remade, had a spiritual successor on the DS, using the same theming but with a much more elaborate layout. Mario Kart 64 has tons of charm. It's fast-paced, full of wacky and unique stage layouts, varied environments, and enough randomness to turn it into a wacky party game with friends. Sure, the AI cheats, but it's fun to race against them and to push times load in time trials, even if you're playing alone. Even the somewhat rough controls, while frustrating to someone relatively inexperienced with Mario Kart 64 like myself, kind of enhances the chaos that this game thrives on. I'd love to drag some friends together once all this Corona bullshit is over to have some 4-player chaos when I can. It's not my favorite Mario Kart, pretty far from it, and hell, 8 is much faster, tighter, and cheats a lot less. But I can't argue that Mario Kart 64 doesn't have tons of soul and charm, and it really does have something special even if it's not the pinnacle of the series.